Nearly 10 years ago, a slew of ex-Rare developers got together and formed a studio known as Playtonic Games. And their goal was to get back to making games like they used to in the days of Perfect Dark and Donkey Kong Country. So in 2017, they put out their first game, Yooka-Laylee, which ended up being a spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie, which a lot of the team actually worked on. And then they sent those same characters on another quest with the incredible Yooka-Laylee in the Impossible Lair. Now since then, they've opened up a publishing arm known as Playtonic Friends, which allows them to help other developers actually bring their games to life. They've published the likes of Little Gator Game, Demon Turf, Blossom Tales 2, and a lot more. But what about Playtonic Games themselves? What have they been working on? While we don't have much to share on that front today, we were able to visit Playtonic Games to see the studio and to sit down with some of their team, like Gavin Price, the founder and designer, Andy Wilson, a producer and man of many hats, Ross Griffith, the head of publishing at Playtonic Friends, Steve Males, the artist behind Banjo and Kazooie and Yooka and Laylee and tons of other characters, and Chris Sutherland, a master programmer and the voice of Banjo and Kazooie.
I was thinking of doing the entire interview like this, but the problem is I wouldn't know if I was talking to the right person, if you were here or there.
We got to learn what it's like behind the closed doors of Playtonic, how it feels to hold on to these secrets for all these years, and learn about some of the actual people that make these games.
So yeah, I've been at Playtonic from the start. What I'd say has changed most about the studio is we've obviously increased in size. I mean, we were 6 people when we started.
And then post Kickstarter, we grew to around 20 employees. Then we stayed at that level for a bit, just kind of nudged up a little bit when we worked on Impossible Lair. And then since Impossible Lair, we've more than doubled to 55. But that now covers like job titles that they're not game development purely. These are like IT and head of people.
We're hiring good people. We've hired Ross recently, head of publishing, who's been great coming in, taking pressure off me. When we brought in our head of people as well, Fran, she's been instrumental in that.
Fran's completely like matured us as a business. She's been amazing. We were just a bunch of 20 great friends who've known each other a long time, and we sustained ourselves on a very simple way of existing as a company. You hit a certain size and you need to look after people as much as the game. Looking after people becomes its own project. So making sure we've got a fantastic new office in the pipeline coming, which I can't wait for. Making sure that if anyone's got any issues, they can go and talk to someone.
We try to take the stress so that sort of the creative teams can they can live, they can breathe, and they can enjoy the work that they're doing.
Because there's so many of us here, we haven't moved our offices yet. There's people I'd see different people on the same day, and people have come up to me. They take the time to ask how I am, how I'm finding it, that sort of thing. And especially for a company this size, it doesn't happen often. Since joining, have my eyes gone? Since joining, everyone's been like incredibly welcoming.
But it's really nice to still see the same faces that I was walking into, Rare for the first time many years ago, and I was starstruck at the time, going, oh my goodness, there's that person. I couldn't believe it. Now still being able to work with them and consider them friends as well, it's amazing.
You look at it as when we first started, we had a lot of older heads. You might think that there's not much to learn, but there's always stuff to learn. But I suppose it's recently that we've taken on other people more sort of graduate and junior level. It's those people who we've seen who've sort of started to grow and develop and blossom. I suppose part of it is trying to pass down some skills, but also be surprised and sort of seeing what they do as well, as they sort of show you what they're capable of.
One of the reasons as well that sort of attracted me to Playtonic is like how few sort of people walk out the doors as opposed to in the doors.
We're not going to be growing so that we become a massive sort of huge corporation. People always feel as though they can talk to us. They can always feel as though they can come and see management. We're sort of part of the team at the same time. We don't want to be this sort of, I suppose, these faceless people who will sit in an office somewhere else that nobody ever sees. Everybody who works here is just part of that same team.
Now, Playtonic is comprised of a lot of fresh faces, along with quite a few rare alumni. So I wanted to learn what was different about making games in the modern age versus the days of Rare and the Super Nintendo and the N64, or even compared to when Playtonic was just starting out.
People that we've brought in, knowing how things work in the kind of the modern day gaming, are kind of more familiar with that. Whereas we've obviously got a history of, we know things that worked in the past and we've seen things progress, but having people with fresh ideas and fresh perspectives, that's a great thing to see. You know, when we worked on Banjo-Kazooie, we'd have the way that sounds got into the game was you'd have Grant Kirkhope would appear at your desk and he'd go, right, I've got some sounds. They're on a file share somewhere, or they're on a floppy disk or something, and then you'd go, oh, I need to put them in now, he's here, and they won't get into the game unless I put them in, and then you'd do whatever magic and type things to get them in and working. And then over time you think, well, why does that need to happen? Why does can't he put the sounds in? And so over a period of years and times, we had different systems that we've implemented to try and do these kind of things. And so I remember doing the visual effect for the transformation for Mumbo in the first game, and I just sat there for a day tweaking these numbers with these things spiraling around and going, no, maybe a bit like this, maybe it's more like this. Try compile, wait, run it, no, that's not right. Try again. And then I was just doing that over and over again, whereas there's no need for me to do that nowadays because somebody else sit on their chair and do that effect completely independently, and then they can probably trigger it themselves. They don't even need me to trigger it anymore. So part of it is often that you see yourself doing the same task over and over again, and then you kind of question, why does this feels like that could be automated, or that's an unnecessary step.
I was happy with the way Yuka and Laylee turned out as like Kickstarter. The whole first project completely hinged on those two characters, really. I mean, obviously there was lots of other important stuff to go with it, but without those, instantly likable duo character, because that was the whole premise of the Kickstarter was it was the Banjo-Kazooie spiritual successor. So if those two characters weren't right, then it was going to fail from the start, I think. So after the ukulele went well and the internet, loved them, that was the. I did feel a lot of pressure for that. I was looking at all the forums. I think it was NeoGAF in those days. There was a big thread on that, and it was like 9 out of 10 people were very positive about them. So I was, as soon as people accepted those, then the other characters were quite easy after that. I think it was the sort of feedback loop was just me. There wasn't. I mean, everyone sort of chipped in, I guess, with comments, but it's not like it is now where there's a bigger feedback loop involving more people. Back then it was just me thinking, I think this is good enough. I hope it's good enough. Let's go with these.
The fortunate position in the 90s and 2000s was the games industry was a whole lot smaller. It was a lot easier to make noise and be heard back then, and you could do so just working on something which should have been commercially non-viable. But if a great game was just a great game, you could make a success of it. And I think the difference now is it's a lot more difficult to find that balance between working on something which is purely altruistic and creatively the thing you want to do, but it's actually got to look after the welfare of 55 plus people who have got mortgages and bills to pay and mouths to feed. You've kind of got to think from a much broader perspective. Is this the right thing for us to do? I look around and I think, wow, what if I'd have chickened out of that decision when I was made redundant from Rare in 2014, and the safe option would have been just to go and try and get another job in the industry somewhere. And I look back and I think it's kind of a sliding doors moment. I think, no, you chose to go and do this, and when you see it's created something, there's games out there and people do enjoy them, and we've got great fans and we've got great people who work here, and that kind of thing. Every now and again I will stop and look around the room and I think, wow, this exists because of that moment. And that's a nice thought.
I suppose when I first came, because I wasn't here originally, and Gavin tried to tempt me in originally when we left Rare. And I'd sort of had a little bit too much of games at that point, and I wanted to get out. I remember I was coming back from Burton. I said, I'll call in and have a chat with you. And we just sat down on the sofa for sort of 30 minutes. And he's very good at persuading you, Gavin is. He's very good. And it was that which just sort of pulled me back. The temptation of working with people who I'd worked with before, working with new people, and just working on sort of fresh product again. Stuff where you can sort of, you can see it grow. It's not the vision of somebody completely different somewhere else. It's the vision which is here, in the company, in the building.
I think the other thing we've done over the years is we've just become more kind of analytical and more careful about the way we do things and the way we take steps and we build things. We're just being very careful and very deliberate in the way we do certain kinds of work. It's an exciting time for me because I suppose I'm working with people who have grown up with some of the games that I worked on. And so they have an appreciation for those. And what often strikes me is that they know more about those games than I do. And so they will tell me things about them and I'll think, is that right? Is that true? Or they'll be more expert in those areas. And I think, how did you know that?
I don't want to fanboy too much on them, but I played Banjo-Kazooie when I was a young lad and absolutely loved that.
But that's great because they often bring things from a perspective of knowing a more modern gaming. So obviously I try and still play games these days, but I don't have as much time as I would like to dedicate as I used to have. It's great that other people are bringing those ideas and this new thinking to us really in all the things we do.
There was very few companies when I was growing up as a gamer, and I consider Rare one of them, where if you just saw the badge, you knew you were buying the game and you knew you were going to enjoy it. It didn't matter what genre it was, you just knew it was going to be a gameplay-led experience and full of fun. It was a safe thing to spend your money on, and that's really important, I think.
What we often do and what we want to try and do is keep those aspects that people love of games from the past that makes them appealing, but often what we want to do is jettison those bits that are kind of a bit jaded or not relevant anymore because times have moved on, and so we need having somebody here who's got an appreciation for those older titles and also is more familiar with a lot of what's in the newer genres. They'll be able to see, as well as we will, what it is that they need to do to make a modern video game.
Playtonic has been set in a few different buildings since their inception, but soon they're moving into a brand new office and leaving this current building behind. And since they've been here for a number of years, I wanted to know if there were any fun secrets, fun elements. Initially though, I kind of scared Ross because he thought that I was asking about undisclosed video game secrets.
Old Green Bessie, roaming the halls. No, unfortunately, I don't think the place is haunted. No secrets per se. There is a workout kit that is just gathering dust in the back.
No. I imagine that there's a load of stuff shoved down in corners which people have got in places, or sort of little stuff that people have hidden every now and again. But no, it's a good point that actually. We should start to do that. We've got so much stuff which we've accumulated over the years in here. Half of it is, I think, from Gavin's house, which just gets put here. And eventually we'll sort of we'll get rid of stuff.
It's interesting, this building, because we've been in this particular building for a number of years, and then previous to that we were in the same site, but we were in another slightly smaller building, and then initially we were in another same site, but in like a tent. There was like 6 people in one building, in one room.
It would be nice. We'll finally have an office where I guess what people have in their mind of what going into work at a development studio looks like is actually the case. Like here, we call it the Magnolia Prison. I've kind of kind of become accustomed to it. I don't know if I'll exist with colour in my life when I go to another office, but we've seen the plans, they're fantastic, and to have that kind of facility, again, it's going to be something which is a real proud moment, and hopefully I'll find a time to reflect on that and say, oh, this is good, Gavin, this is where we should have been a long time ago. And we'll have all sorts in there, like a gym, a nice kitchen area for people to prepare their own meals, coffee bar, and all these extra kind of like nice little luxuries. It kind of does mean something to me as well, because I'm from this town, Burton-on-Trent, and this is the building which sits on top of the well, which is provided the water for the beer industry. It means a lot to the local area, actually, the beer industry, and Playtonic will be like kind of custodians of the water for the beer industry once we're sat above this well, which goes off around town to the various breweries. There is a bit of that personality in the office as well. There's kind of a Scooby-Doo secret room behind a bookcase, which will be like where the best place to go and preview games will be behind there. And I think the idea is the bookcase will be on a hinge, but I'm just going to tell people it's a holograph and see if they walk into it.
So with the team growing steadily in size, a brand new office in the pipeline, and assuming they've been working on some big things behind closed doors, I wanted to know, when can we expect to hear more? And what's next for Playtonic?
I've always loved being surprised, and I've always loved surprising people. And I think that's something the industry's lost a bit, to be honest. I think everything has to be known of and marketed and hyped to such an extent that you almost get fatigued when you start playing the game, and you don't seem to play. I personally don't play things through as much as I used to. I always feel like I've already played halfway through before I've started, and then I get to a certain point in the game and I'm done. And I think I'd love us to just surprise people, whether it's through an announcement, whether it's once they actually get their hands on the game, there being something about it that they didn't quite realise. I really look forward to those moments.
If nothing else, they should be looking at us and saying, oh, I like the games, I look forward to seeing the games, and I wonder what they're going to bring out next. And I don't know if I can ask for more than that, really.
I hope we've earned people's trust, and we've kind of earned this extra time that we're taking, because we really want to sort of hone in on this next game and make it really special. We realised that, although we were very happy with the game we made, it would have been better if we had more people and more time, and that is hopefully the game we're making next. So we just have to be very careful about releasing anything too early or anything that we're not 100% happy with.
I'd say bear with us and just accept that you're not going to find out until we're really comfortable at doing that. It's how we used to do things at Rare, and we thought it yielded great results. So look forward to it and enjoy one of the 10,000 amazing games being released every single month at the minute. There's plenty out there, but hopefully when we release something, it's kind of got something unique and special about it that gives you a great smile.
So there's been a lot of talk of surprises. So where does that leave Yuka and Laylee? Hopefully not the corner, right?
Oh, no. We still need the ukulele series. We ordered a ton of googly eyes, so we still need to get them into a game somewhere, and Yuka's the perfect platform for that.